200,000 miles. Say it out loud and it sounds like a typo, but the average British driver covers somewhere around 12,000 miles a year. So 200,000 miles is roughly 17 years of school runs, motorway slogs, wet Tuesdays in February, and one very optimistic trip to Cornwall. Most SUVs sold in this country will never get anywhere near it. They get part exchanged at 80,000, sold on at 120, and quietly weighed in when a gearbox quote lands bigger than the value of the car. And then there's the other lot. The ones that come up on my ramp with a six-figure mileage, a fat stack of service history, and an engine that still sounds like it means it. 10 of them today, counted down, worst to best. And number one is the one the trade genuinely fights over at auction. I'm Roy Stroud, I'm 45, and 22 years of that has been spent under cars. First in main dealer workshops, then independent, mostly around the Midlands. I've serviced these things when they were new, and I've condemned them when they were finished, which means I've watched entire model ranges live and die from the driver's side of the ramp. No badge loyalty here. Nobody pays me a penny to say a nice word about anything with a manufacturer's name on the bonnet. Before we get into it, hit subscribe, because this one could genuinely stop a mate spending 12 grand on something big and shiny that gives up at 110,000. Now, these picks aren't just my opinion, they're built on the pattern you get when you stack a few sources on top of each other. Publicly available DVSAMOT test data, which quietly tells you which vehicles are still passing tests at high mileages and which ones vanish off the road early. The What Car Reliability Survey and the Which Car Survey, both of which ask actual owners in this country what went wrong and what it cost them. The Warranty-Wise Reliability Index, which is useful precisely because it's built on claims somebody had to pay out on. Honest John's good and bad listings, where owners log the same faults over and over until a pattern becomes undeniable. Breakdown patterns reported by the RAC and the AA. And then the bit no survey captures. What independent garages say to each other when the customer's gone to get a coffee? Right, 30 seconds before number 10. And it's directly relevant to this list. Not one car on here reaches 200,000 miles by luck. It gets there because somebody serviced it properly, and just as importantly, because somebody didn't get talked into work it never needed. The 2026 undercover test took one car with one known fault round 10 UK garages. All 10 found the fault. 4 of them also recommended work the car didn't need. Brakes, plugs, aircon, another 400 to 950 quid on the ticket. That's not bad apples, that's the system. The advisor is on 8 to 15% of whatever goes on the bill. So I put the real intervals and the real specs into the British Vehicles Bible. 15 garage upsells decoded, with the exact sentence you say at the desk to decline each one. 19 quid, instant download, 60 days money back. Links in the description and pinned in the comments. Right. Number 10. The Dacia Duster. Nobody buys a Duster to impress the neighbours. You buy one because it's the cheapest newish SUV in the country and because underneath it's Renault Nissan running gear that's been built by the million. And that's exactly why it's here. Simple suspension, an engine family that's been in everything from vans to hatchbacks and parts you can get from any factor at 9 in the morning. Owners regularly report sailing past 150,000 with nothing exotic going wrong. What stops them getting further is rust and short journeys. Underbody protection is basic, and if it's lived on salted roads its whole life, the arches and subframe will tell you. And a diesel Duster doing 4-mile school runs will block a DPF and cook a turbo eventually. A turbo and a DPF on the same visit can run past £1,000 on a car that's worth 4. Look after the underside and give it a proper motorway run now and then, and it'll outlive things that cost triple. Number 9. The Hyundai Santa Fe, and specifically the 2.2 CRDI diesel. This is a proper workhorse. Big, heavy, tows a caravan without complaining, and it was sold with a 5-year warranty when new, which tells you what Hyundai thought of it. In the trade you see high-mileage Santa Fe's doing towing and rural work, and the engine itself rarely gives up first. The honest bit is that the emissions kit around it does. EGR valves and DPFs are the usual reason one goes to the scrapyard rather than the engine. Automatic gearboxes need their fluid doing, whatever anyone tells you. And the timing setup on these is not a job to defer. Get all that done on schedule and it'll shrug off 200,000 miles of towing. Skip it once and you'll get a bill that makes you sell the caravan. Number 8. The Skoda Kodiaq 2.0 TDI. Volkswagen Group underneath, Skoda price on the windscreen, and one of the most sensible family SUVs sold in Britain. The diesel engine in these is genuinely tough. I've seen them past 180,000 with nothing worse than a set of injectors. Here's the thing that kills them early, and it's the one I mentioned a minute ago, the DSG gearbox. There is a persistent story that these boxes are sealed for life. The wet clutch DSG has a fluid and filter interval, and it is not optional. Ignore it, and the box starts hesitating, then juddering. Then it's mechatronic unit money, and that's a repair that can wipe out the value of an older one in a single invoice. Do the fluid, and the same box will keep going long after the paint's gone dull. Sealed for life usually means sealed for somebody's warranty period, not yours. Number 7. The Honda CR-V, the naturally aspirated 2.0 petrol. This is the boring answer, and it's the right one. No turbo, no DPF, no high-pressure diesel injection system waiting to hand you a 4-figure bill, a timing chain instead of a belt. Honda built these to a standard that frankly doesn't exist at this price point anymore, and the trade knows it, which is why clean high-mileage ones don't sit on forecourts long. What it costs you is fuel because it's not quick and it's not economical by modern standards. And on the 4-wheel drive versions, the rear differential has its own fluid that almost nobody changes, which is how you end up with a groaning back axle at 140,000 for want of a cheap service item. Older ones rot round the rear arches too, so get underneath before you buy. It's the least exciting car on this list, and it will still be running when half of them are gone. Number 6. The Volvo XC90, the D5 diesel. Look at any minicab rank at an airport and count how many are Volvos. That's not sentiment, that's operators who calculate cost per mile for a living. The D5 engine and that big body were built for continuous long-distance work. The seats are the best in the class by a mile, and the safety kit was ahead of its time. The honest concession is that the servicing is not cheap, and it does not tolerate neglect. Timing belt intervals must be respected. The EGR system and the swirl setup get clogged if it's used for short hops, and on the ones with air suspension, a single warning light gets quoted as a full corner replacement far more often than it needs to be. A well-kept one will do 250,000 miles. A neglected one will bankrupt you politely. Number 5. The Mitsubishi Outlander, the 2.2 diesel. Unfashionable, underrated, and built like a farm implement. These were bought by people who actually needed a tow bar and a set of muddy boots in the boot, and they were engineered accordingly. The drivetrain is durable, and the 4-wheel drive system is simple by modern standards, which means fewer things to go expensively wrong. 2 warnings. The diesel particulate filter hates urban life, same as everything else on this list. And Mitsubishi stopped selling new cars in the UK a few years back. So while service parts are still fine, some trim and body panels have got harder to source. If you find one with history from a rural owner, it's one of the best value long-distance buys in the country. Quick favour before we hit the top 4. If this is stopping you from putting 12 grand into something that dies at 100,000, tap the like button. Costs you nothing, and it pushes this in front of somebody who's about to sign for the wrong car this weekend. Cheers. Number 4. The Mitsubishi Shogun, the 3.2 diesel. This is the last of the properly agricultural big Japanese 4x4s sold here, and the trade treats it with real respect. Ladder chassis, low-range transfer box, an engine with the stress levels of a tractor. Farmers, horse people, and plant hire firms ran these into the ground and then bought another one, which tells you everything. The problem is not the mechanicals, it's the metal. Chassis and body corrosion is what ends a Shogun in this country, and once salt has been at the rear chassis rails, walk away no matter how good the engine sounds. Get a rust-free one, keep the underside protected, and 250,000 miles is not remarkable. It'll rot before it wears out, and that's a compliment. Number 3. The Lexus RX 450H. Now I can hear you yelling at the screen about hybrid batteries. Stay with me. The reason this car is here is what it doesn't have. No clutch to burn, no conventional automatic gearbox to overheat, no turbo, no DPF, no belt. The engine runs on a low-stress cycle, and the electric motors do the ugly work of pulling away. Brake pads on these last absurdly long because the Regan does most of the slowing. What you're accepting is a bigger bill if the hybrid battery does eventually fail, and on some versions, air suspension that gets quoted aggressively the moment a sensor flags. But taxi fleets across Britain have hammered these for hundreds of thousands of miles, and the drivetrain keeps going. It's a luxury car with the running costs of something far more sensible. Number 2. The Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. Walk out of any UK airport and you'll see a rank of them. Private hire operators moved onto RAV4 hybrids en masse because they're ULEZ friendly, cheap on fuel, and critically, they don't brake in a way that costs a driver a shift. Same logic as the Lexus in a cheaper and more practical package. Toyota's hybrid system has been in the field for over 2 decades now, and the failure rate on the core components is genuinely low. 2 things to watch. Because the regenerative braking does most of the work, the rear brakes barely get used and can seize up from corrosion. And a car that's done 300,000 miles as a private hire vehicle has had 300,000 miles of hard use, whatever the paint looks like. Check the history, not the shine. It's the most quietly competent thing on this list. And number 1, the Toyota Land Cruiser. There's a phrase in the trade about the Land Cruiser, which is that aid agencies buy them for places with no roads, no parts, and no second chances. That's the standard it was designed to. Over-engineered driveline, an engine deliberately built with margin instead of squeezing every last horsepower out of a small block, and a body-on-frame construction that tolerates abuse, no crossover would survive. High mileage examples don't depreciate the way normal cars do, because demand for a good one never falls. This is where I do the honest bit. It is expensive to buy, expensive to fuel, and if it lives on short urban runs, it will block a DPF like anything else. Salt will attack the underside if you let it, and it's slow, and it's thirsty, and it corners like a wardrobe. But at 12,000 miles a year, 200,000 miles is 17 years, and I have never once seen a properly maintained Land Cruiser die of old age. They just get sold to somebody who knows what they're looking at. That's the payoff. Not a survey, a queue of buyers. So, quick recap. 10. The Dacia Duster. Simple to the point of being unkillable if you keep the rust off. 9. The Hyundai Santa Fe. A tow car that outlasts the Caravan. 8. The Skoda Kodiaq. Brilliant if you do the gearbox fluid nobody tells you about. 7. The Honda CR-V Petrol. Boring. Chain-driven. Immortal. 6. The Volvo XC90D5. Motorway miles by the 100,000. 5. The Mitsubishi Outlander. The rural workhorse nobody talks about. 4. The Mitsubishi Shogun. It'll rot before it wears out. 3. The Lexus RX 450H. Luxury with almost nothing left to break. 2. The Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. The taxi trade's pick, and they don't get sentimental. And 1. The Toyota Land Cruiser. The one the whole trade agrees on. Here's my honest takeaway though. Not one of these cars reaches 200,000 miles because of the badge. Every single high mileage example I've had on the ramp got there for the same 3 reasons. Fluids changed on time, faults fixed when they were small, and an owner who didn't get bled dry by unnecessary work in between, because the ones who do get bled dry eventually stop spending money on the car at all, and that's when it dies. A cheap SUV that's been looked after will outlive an expensive one that hasn't, every time. So tell me in the comments, what's the highest mileage you've personally put on a car, and did it still owe you anything at the end? And be honest, are you sitting on one of these right now? If this was useful, hit like and subscribe. And if you'd rather not learn what any of this costs the hard way, the Bible's still linked below. Service it right and drive it twice as long. I'll see you in the next one. This video is based on publicly available MOT and recall data, reliability surveys, owner reports, and independent review evidence current at time of publication. Individual vehicle outcomes vary enormously with maintenance history and use. Some models may have had subsequent updates, recalls, or improvements. Always obtain current information and independent advice before making any purchase decision. This video also mentions a paid digital guide produced by this channel. It is independent and not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by any vehicle manufacturer or franchise dealer. Savings figures are illustrative and vary by vehicle, garage, and region.